réaction, c'est que ça va être un enfer.
Ça m'inquiète un petit peu.
The show must go on, even if the house lights go down quite a bit earlier than usual. Well, that's the response from many in the performing arts sector after a 9 p.m. curfew was announced for 9 metropolitan areas here in France, sowing panic that cultural activities would effectively be cancelled. Well, to discuss the consequences of those measures, I'm joined on set by Edilia Gens, director of Fedora. Edilia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your association works with some 80 different institutions in various countries. It's won prizes for the successful partnerships you fostered in the arts as a philanthropic non-profit specialising in opera and dance. Now, today, the sector is in crisis because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I believe that when Fedora was established, it was because there was a real fear for the future of the performing arts. You felt that they were perhaps under threat. Can you tell us a bit more about the climate in the industry then and how it's evolved since?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Indeed, 6 years ago, when Fedora was relaunched in Paris as a European organization, as a tribute to Rolf Liebermann, the need of the time of the sector was to really encourage emerging artists to embark on new work and to bring new ideas to the stage, and to also encourage collaboration between institutions across borders within Europe and beyond. So it was this combination of renewal of the repertoire and giving emerging artists the chance to emerge in this field.
Now, of course, I think initially some of the concerns were more financial and logistical, as you mentioned, but earlier this year, moving on 6 years, when this health crisis hit, arts venues had to quickly shut up shop. Who did you see as potentially the frontline victims, the institutions or individuals who are going to be hardest hit? Who are you most concerned about?
Well, in the performing arts sector, obviously the basis of the art form is to bring people together either on the stage, behind the stage, or also the audience. So this entire situation obviously is a huge challenge for everyone who is involved. Of course, individual freelance artists who base their careers on freelance work are, of course, extremely badly hit. However, also organizations, depending on their funding models that are also evolving, are also rethinking now their operations and trying to receive lifeline support from governments or philanthropic side to survive and to sustain their activity. And of course, what is extremely important also to say in this situation is that there has been an incredible amount of solidarity within the sector. There has been incredible conversations happening between institutions, sharing best practices, trying to help each other out on understanding how everyone is coping with the situation and to also learn from each other in this moment of crisis. And there have been also some great best practice examples that have come out of this, like, for instance, the Salzburg Festival that was able to, go forward with, a reduced but wonderful program this summer for their 100th anniversary. And it really showed that if there's really a will, there's also a way to adjust and to be able to also guarantee the security and all the safety requirements and health measures that need to be put in place to guarantee the security of the artists, performers, and also the audiences.
Indeed, Salzburg was an impressive exception because after a summer of cancellations and closures, many saw the back-to-school season, the rentrée here in France, as the light at the end of the tunnel for the arts. That light was dimmed last week due to the announcement of a 9 p.m. curfew in Greater Paris and other large towns. French Culture Minister Roselyne Bachelot had made a special request for cinema and theatregoers to be allowed to stay out after 9 p.m, presenting their tickets as proof if checked by the police on their way home. Yet that plea seems to have fallen upon deaf ears. Here's more from Yenna Lee.
Disappointment all round for cinemas and theatres. Despite best efforts from Culture Minister Roselyne Bachelot, France's famed cultural exception is not an argument in the current circumstances. It's official, the 9 p.m. curfew applies regardless.
Je crois qu'il nous faut des règles très claires et très simples, et ces règles doivent être les mêmes pour tous.
But for those whose livelihoods depend on the arts, those rules seem unjustified.
Est-ce qu'une seule salle de théâtre
en France, a été déclaré cluster. Non. Alors, je comprends mal comment on bombarde des lieux où l'ennemi est absent.
Actor Fabrice Lucchini echoed that frustration, criticising the government's strategy.
On vit une chose où on ne comprend pas, c'est ça qui est terrifiant, c'est qu'on ne comprend pas ce que ce gouvernement fait.
As for cinemas, many have been swift to rearrange their timetables, with screenings as early as 8 a.m. to adapt to the new regulations.
Touché, mais pas coulé. Je pense que l'ensemble des acteurs du secteur de la culture vont se battre aux côtés de leurs spectateurs, vont se battre aux côtés des distributeurs, des producteurs, pour essayer de vivre ou survivre.
The industry is counting on further bailout funds from the government, as authorities say they'll do everything in their power to soften this latest blow.
Now, we saw there that cinemas are putting on extra screenings even early in the morning. Other institutions have already reacted to the curfew. The Opéra Garnier here in Paris is pulling forward the start time of the Étoile de l'Opéra Ballet. How feasible do you think this is for other venues and their public? Is this the solution, earlier start times?
Well, one must say that these are very special times, very uncertain times. It is a situation that our entire world has, in this form, not been up against. When looking at the performing arts venues in our network, the common denominator of all of these organizations is that everyone is believing that, you know, the show must go on and will go on, and everyone is doing everything possible to make adjustments in the way they're operating, in the way they are running the theaters, and how they're delivering performances maybe in reduced formats, and also are willing to look outside of the box for new ways of hosting audiences and how that experience of culture is delivered. Because at the end of the day, it's about what culture brings to your everyday. It's about giving you hope. It's about giving you inspiration for a brighter future. And it is more than ever that we need this kind of energy and this kind of hope to be given to audiences and society in the circumstances where everyone is, you know, worried about the future. And that's why it's important that organizations are actually adapting. And it's remarkable, the hard work that is happening behind the scenes. Incredible, from the largest to the smallest institutions. Everyone is trying to adapt and going out of their way to make this happen.
And amid all of this hard work, there is a lot of frustration there. We've heard from many artists who are caught unawares, perhaps Jean-Michel Ribes, there, the theatre director in the report, Fabrice Lucchini expressing their frustration that the government has made life for artists and performers quite difficult. What sort of message do you think the government is sending out with these measures?
I would say that these measures are taken in sense of responsibility towards the health of society and everyone, which is a top priority in this situation. It's about saving lives. And I think it is also in a situation where it is very difficult also to estimate how the virus may continue circulating and the impact that might have. So it is a very precautionary action, and it is also obviously a very responsible thing to do, to think of people's health in a first step. And in a second step, obviously, governments are also working hard on creating lifeline support. Also on European level, the European Commission is also building programs, also Creative Europe, to provide additional support to artists in these difficult times. Obviously, everyone is trying to adapt, and in general, there will be future initiatives to also enhance that kind of support. And it is also the moment of philanthropy, because this is really the moment where support of our peers is needed. This is not just about sustaining our life as healthy individuals. It's also of healthy, fulfilled individuals who are inspired by the arts. So it's about also helping peers in their professions to be able to continue pursuing their dreams once this nightmare is over.
Well, indeed, just to wrap up briefly, looking ahead to the future, we've all adopted different practices, different habits during this very strange time. But how do you think the effects will be felt after this virus? Do you think the landscape of the arts will be fundamentally changed in terms of how they are made, how we consume them?
What we can see now, what is already happening, is that there's a wonderful moment of minds coming together and rethinking how the sector should evolve from an artistic point of view, from how audience relations are managed, and how also technology is used in the running of institutions, and how this can really also be harnessed as a complementary element in the performing arts world. Of course, the performing arts experience lives from the live experience, and nothing can replace that. And what's interesting is also to see the bold creative ideas that will be coming out of this, and knowing that from our competition, since we support projects that will be realized only in a few years' time, and we've just published a new call for applications for the next edition of the prizes, it is very interesting to have these conversations, to know that artists are today already working on bold and creative ideas that will actually reach the stage in the future. So I truly believe that if we support the performing arts, artists and general culture, they will come back in the near future and surprise us with incredible creativity and ideas.
And we're all very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Idilia, for joining us today. Now we're wrapping up the show with perhaps some more good news for fans of theatre and dance, with a week of performances in Avignon in the south of France. The city's world-renowned theatre festival was called off in July, but organisers have managed to put together a scaled-down version of that annual event. We'll leave you with a taste of Le Jeu des Ombres, directed by Jean Bellorini, with his contemporary take on the myth of Orpheus. Do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture, and we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.